Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Smeralda and you are watching Albo plants. So today's video was requested by one of you guys and the thematic is going to be about my Alocasias and which Alocasia plants I have in my collection. And I want to start by saying that Alocasia is actually one of my favorite genus of plants. Together with philodendrons and anthuriums, they are my top 3 favorite genus. And during the years I have collected a few of them. I used to have maybe even more, but I sold or traded them. And now at the moment I know I have 10 different Alocasias in my collection. So without further ado, let's start by showing you them. The first one I want to talk about is of course one of my most favorites, which will be the Alocasia dragon scale, which is this beauty in here. And this one actually made me fall in love with Alocasias. It was the first Alocasia that really struck me with its beauty, and because I really do love some contrasty leaves, this one is the most you can get, the most contrasty you can get in a plant, and I do really love it. Also the shape is quite beautiful. I like the fact that these kind of Alocasias, which are the jewel Alocasias, can stay a little bit more compact than the other ones and a little bit smaller. I mean, they are considered like in a medium size kind of plant. And yeah, I think it is quite fitting for my space because they don't end up taking up a lot of space, even though they can grow even larger than this one. And a negative, if we can say, about this plant is the fact that it grows a bit slow for me, and the size of the leaf has not sized up quite a lot since I have it. And I grown, like most of my Alocasias actually, I have grown from bulbs, because usually what happens is that after I buy an Alocasia, the mother plant usually can rot or die off, because I think that they are a little bit difficult to acclimatize to a new space when they move or they change like conditions. So what they do is they end up dying, and I grow the bulbs that I find, and the bulbs then are pretty much used to the new conditions and they grow very well for me. And keep in mind that I'm doing this video in winter, so Alocasias really take a hit during the winter, so these are not going to look perfect, but nonetheless I'm going to show them to you. So the first one is this beauty. And as I said, this one was the first one that made me fall in love with Alocasias, and this is the green version, the dragon scale. I would also love to have the blue, the silver one, which is the silver dragon, but yeah, at the moment I have not got one of those, but hopefully in the future I can. And maybe it would be even interesting to put them together so you can see the difference in color very well. So yeah, there are some yellowing tips, and this is because, as I said, it is winter and maybe I may have overwatered a little bit at the beginning when the temperatures change. It doesn't bother me too much. They mostly are the older leaves, so yeah, as long as it is growing new healthy leaves, for me it's not a big problem. So another jewel Alocasia that I want to talk about, which is also another of my favorite Alocasias, is the black velvet. So this one is very similar to the first Alocasia that I showed you, but the biggest difference about this one is the fact that it has these very dark velvety leaves, and the contrast in this one is the fact that the leaves are a very dark green and the veins are kind of neon green, and at the front they may look also a little bit silver. So yeah, that is the biggest difference of this one and the first one that I showed you. And this can also get the red bags, and when they do get the red bags, the color on the front becomes even darker. In this pot I have three main bulbs growing, as you can see, and there is also one small little bulb that doesn't have leaves at the moment, because I think they dropped at the beginning of winter, and it doesn't matter. As long as the bulb is not rotted and doesn't have any problems, it is going to grow back on spring, so in the spring. So yeah, there are also some marks, which again I think it is because at one point at the beginning of winter I overwatered a little bit my Alocasias, because yeah, the change of the temperatures and the light can make, like, you need to change also your watering schedule, so it is a bit difficult to adapt or to see when you have to adapt when the conditions change. So yeah, and other than that, this plant is actually doing very well. I am growing it in one of my shelves, and as you can see, it has grown in only one direction because the light comes only from one side of the plant, and it's no problem. I like the way that plants grow like this because they use less space, but you can rotate it all the time if you want to make a kind of growing that is circular and in all directions. I will show you some of the other Alocasias that are growing that way. But yeah, the second one that I wanted to show you was my black velvet Alocasia. It is so stunning. I love to touch it, and I also want to show you that the leaves, when they first emerge, they can have a little bit of more of a green hue, and then they darken. So let's continue with an Alocasia that isn't very happy at the moment, and that is my Alocasia Zebrina, which, as you can see, it's not happy and it's not shy to show it. So the Zebrina, for the Zebrina I have some things to say, not so positive ones. So I did really like the Zebrina at the beginning, and I really wanted to own one of them because of the beautiful stems, and they can get really huge. They can become very big and stunning, and actually this one used to be very big, lush and beautiful. At one point it started producing like very massive leaves and beautiful dark stems. But what it happened was, when the first winter came, I actually made the mistake to move this one from its position where it was happy. I moved it to another place, and it directly showed it to me that it wasn't happy. It throwed all the leaves that it had, and only the bulbs were like remained at the time. And this pot has got, if you see, two main bulbs that were the plants, the mother plants that I bought it. And I tried to add some smaller bulbs. I also added them in one of my videos, but they were very small, and as you can see, yeah, they all dropped the leaves, and I can see the bulbs inside of there. and I don't think they are rotted, so I'm not going to move them. Hopefully in the spring they are going to sprout. But yeah, what happened with this plant? So after the winter passed, I thought that in the spring it's going to come back, because Alocasias usually do that. And I was hopeful that it is going to become again a very beautiful lush plant, but actually all year passed and this plant hasn't fully, how it's called, recovered from the last winter. One of the bulbs, as you can see, has put out some leaves. Not a lot, but still managed to push out some leaves. The other bulb, on the other hand, has still remained dormant and hasn't pushed any leaves yet. I can see a small kind of like growth point that it has activated on the side, but still I don't see any indication that this is going to give me any leaves soon. So yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed from this plant, because it's actually finicky. It's more finicky than the jewel Alocasias. That is a bit strange for me, because seeing the way that both of these kind of plants grow and their characteristics, I would assume that the jewel Alocasias will be more finicky, but no. Actually, the Zebrina, in my experience, is more difficult. So, of course, I'm still hoping that this is going to grow and become the beauty it once was. So I'm keeping my finger crossed that this year will be the year that it's going to flourish again. But yeah, the bulbs are not rotted, so that is a very big plus. Yeah, this is my Alocasia Zebrina and how it currently is looking like. So now I want to show you one of my biggest, largest, lushest Alocasias. And it is quite funny, because I see a lot of time that this Alocasia is judged to be a very difficult plant and a plant that can die very easily and give problems. But if you can see, my Alocasia Polly, knock on wood, or hopefully I don't hex it, it's doing amazing. And this is officially one of the most favorite plants of Rudy and also my mother, because they love how it looks and how happy it looks. So, of course, because this plant is so happy, it's one of my favorites too. And fun fact, I have said it in multiple videos, but I am very proud of this. Actually, all of this beauty has grown from bulbs that I saved from the mother plant that rotted. So these were all grown in my house and are acclimatized, and they are doing amazing. In one of my latest videos, I repotted her because it was drying out so fast, and now it is a little bit better for me to take care of her, because I don't need to water her as often. But as you can see, there are 5 bulbs, 3 that are larger and 2 that are a little bit smaller. There are 5 bulbs growing in this planter. So that is going to be my advice for growing Alocasias. I suggest you to try and buy a pot that has a lot of bulbs, a lot of shoots inside. Or if you are able to, try and propagate it and plant them together. So yeah, your plant is going to look very happy and lush. That's what I want to do with all my Alocasias, and I am trying to do all the time. As you saw, I have multiple bulbs in one pot. But yeah, this one is stunning. When this plant is happy, it's really beautiful, and even though this is very easily found in stores and it is referred to as common because of that, I think that this is one of the most beautiful Alocasias because it is very peculiar, it is very unique with the dark color, the shape that it has, and also the contrast. And even the back of the leaves are quite stunning. I don't know if I'm able to show you, but as you can see, they have a kind of like mosaic pattern on the back, kind of purplish. And yeah, my other Alocasia is my Alocasia Polly, or they are called also Amazonica or even African mask. Yeah, my biggest Alocasia for the moment. So let's continue with a small baby Alocasia because the last one was quite big. And the other one that I have at the moment in my collection is this, which is called an Alocasia Lauterbachiana. So the history of this plant was that it was at the beginning of my plant collecting hobby, and I was at the stage that if I saw something like a little bit different from the usual plants that are found at the stores, I would of course want to buy it, and this was one of those plants. It was the first time that I saw this kind of Alocasia, and I really wanted to have it in my collection, and I bought it. And actually I bought it during the winter, and it came with thrips. Yeah, because it was one of those purchases that you buy online and you don't check it out and it comes to your home. It was with thrips, so I had to intervene and treat it. But it didn't like at all the treatment because it was winter, it was cold, and it remained with water on the leaves. So I think that it got a little too much of shock and the mother plant rotted. So it was like the first period of my plant collecting, and I didn't know that actually you can find bulbs on Alocasias. And I left the pot of the rotted mother on my balcony and wasn't tending that pot for months. And then when I had this success with the bulbs of the Polly, I remembered that I had this plant and I had the pot. So I went and dug into the pot, and I actually found two very tiny bulbs. So I tried to grow them, and one of those has become this baby that is in here, and it needed a lot of time to grow to this size, and this is how it is looking at the moment. So yeah, the Lauterbachiana is very peculiar. It has this kind of sword shape to the leaves, and the stems are very similar to the Zebrina, but they have a kind of different color. The back of the leaves are a little bit purplish when they first emerge. And to say the truth, now that I have a better idea of what I like and I don't like to have on my plants, or the kind of characteristics that I really like on plants, this is not like my favorite. This is not of my taste, and maybe in the future I will sell it or trade it because it's not giving me too much joy to have it in my collection. So, but I am just a little bit attached because I saved this plant and I've grown it from bulbs. So yeah, the other Alocasia that I have in my collection is the Lauterbachiana. So another Alocasia that surprised me very much, because I thought that it was going to be kind of a medium-ish size Alocasia, but in fact it can become huge, and it surprised me with that, is the Alocasia Pink Dragon. So this baby has got some similar characteristics to the Zebrina, which I don't really like, because it really doesn't like winter. It doesn't like low temperatures, and it shows it. This one, I think, went into dormancy last winter, and it was a long period of time that it didn't produce any new leaves, and only in midsummer it woke up and pushed this new leaf that you can see. And after that it decided that it wanted to flower, and it produced 3 flowers on a row. And Alocasias, when they produce flowers, it takes a bit to the plant and it doesn't produce new leaves. So I was very frustrated about that, because I do really like this plant to give me new leaves, and I cut off the flowers, but it hasn't produced any new leaf since then. And now that winter came, I think it is going to go again into dormancy. So yeah, that is a shame, because as you can see, this plant, this Alocasia, can produce really beautiful, beautiful leaves. And since the first leaf that it produces under my care, it was double, triple the size of the leaves that I bought it in the store, and it was very surprising for me. So after it matures a little bit, actually the pink on the stem isn't as noticeable. It becomes more of a creamy color. That is something that I would have liked more if it stayed the pink stem that it's very well known for. Because it has the name Pink Dragon, I would assume that the pink stem will stay, but actually it becomes a little bit of a dusty rose kind of color, which is not the worst. I do like also that kind of color. And as you can see in the pot, I have a very big bulb in here and a small bulb that I planted. And this Alocasia I propagated very easily with bulbs, just like the Polly, and I sold some of them. So the next step is going to be to make this pot a little bit fuller. So it is going to be even more exciting if it has more bulbs. Then the new leaves are going to be produced more often. So yeah, I see a lot of bulbs in the planter and I have not touched it. I want for them to be able to sprout on themselves, by themselves. At least this is the idea that I have for the moment. Maybe I will change my mind if I change the pot of this plant soon. But yeah, this is my Alocasia Pink Dragon, and it's a stunning Alocasia. I would of course suggest it if you want. If you like the Polly but you want it to be even bigger, then this is the plant for you. So another baby that I have in my collection is this one, which is the Alocasia Wentii, and this was a bulb that a plant collector here in Albania gifted me from her mother plant. And yeah, the goal for me was to actually own a regal shield because I think they are stunning, they are very pretty, and they are very similar to the Wentii. The only difference is that they have a more velvety, kind of suede leaf on the front, and this one, on the other hand, is more shiny. But yeah, nonetheless, it is a very pretty Alocasia, in my opinion, and it is growing very well for me. I have it on leca, and it's one of the only plants that I am growing at the moment with leca. And as you can see, the roots are growing like crazy. They have filled the pot, and knowing me, I am going to, of course, plant it in soil soon, because I am not used to growing in leca on long term. I like to use it for propagation, especially I wanted to say especially for alocasias, but actually the substrate that I really like to propagate alocasias will be perlite, because the bulbs are a little bit small, and the leca sometimes it can rot the bulbs because it keeps a lot of moisture. I don't know. I have had more success with perlite than with leca, but yeah. This baby actually was very interesting because it started to produce some kind of variegation on some of the leaves, and I can see in all of the leaves a little bit of speckling, especially on the underside of the on the underside of the leaves. But yeah, it's not very prominent, so it's not like I am obsessing over this thing, but it's very interesting to see the new leaves and to have something like a plus to be excited for. And I'm going to be very curious to see if it's going to produce bulbs, and if the bulbs are going to be variegated. That will be like a present from this plant to me, because I do really love variegated alocasias. I have seen a lot of them circulating, and they are stunning. So yeah, I need to ask Rudy to sing the variegation song to this alocasia. So another alocasia in my collection is my Wentii. The next one that I want to show you, is my Alocasia Cuprea, which this is the red secret kind. And to say the truth, I don't know if there are two kinds. I have seen that some Cupreas are more on the greenish side, some are more on the reddish side, and what I have observed is when alocasias tend to produce larger leaves, they can be greener, and if it produces smaller leaves, they are more reddish color. So I am doubting if there are two types or if it's just a maturity thing with this kind of alocasia. But yeah, this is my Cuprea. At one time it started producing these very big leaves, but then it took a pause and produced some small leaves, and now finally it's starting again to produce a little bigger leaves for me, a little bit bigger leaves. So yeah, so the one characteristic of this alocasia that is different from the other ones that I have observed is the fact that the bulb or the rhizome on this alocasia grows very tall, and it has become quite long. That is the reason why I have used this jar to plant it, because it had the stem was quite long, and I think it goes till here, and I wanted to encourage the roots on the upper stem to grow. But it has become so tall now that it's not fitting on my shelf, so I am planning on unpotting this alocasia and maybe cutting it in half so I can try and propagate it through stem cutting. So yeah, that will be interesting, and in this way I can shorten the length of the stem of the bulb and plant it and put it again in the shelf, because now at the moment it is growing these new leaves. Oh no, the newest leaf is this. At the moment it is growing these new leaves, and because they are touching the bottom of the other shelf, they are kind of deforming, so I don't really like that. I want the leaves to be as pretty as they can, so yeah, that is going to be my plan for this Alocasia. But as you can see, this is only one bulb, and it is keeping all these leaves, so I'm pretty impressed actually that it is managed to keep all these leaves and not throw them away. But yeah, at the beginning when I bought this plant, actually there were 2 bulbs in the planter, and one of those, when I repotted it, I think I put them in a larger pot that they needed, and one of the bulbs rotted. So, and I haven't managed to grow any new baby with bulb propagation, so I don't know. The bulbs that I harvested the last time rotted. Maybe I wasn't too careful with them. I needed to be a little bit more careful, but I would love to multiply this Alocasia because it is a stunning Alocasia. I love it very much, and if I could be able to have more, even double from this plant, I wouldn't mind it because it is super pretty. And I suggest you to check out the variegated Cuprea. They are stunning. They can have pink variegation and they look so pretty. So yeah, the other Alocasia in my collection is this Cuprea. So I do have also 2 Colocasias, but they are in my balcony, so I'm going to show you some footage of those. And I think that one of them is called the Odora, and the other one, I'm not 100% sure of the species name, but I'm going to put it on the screen because I have found it in my balcony tour, the name that I think that Colocasia is. But yeah, they are both kind of Colocasias. They grow really big. The downside that they have that I don't really like about them is the fact that they are super prone to getting pests. As I know, Colocasias have the bulb that is edible. I know that some cultures eat the bulbs of this kind of Colocasia. It's like kind of a potato or something. And of course, as all edible plants, they are very prone to being attacked by pests. And these 2 Colocasias are battling all the time spider mites and even thrips. So they are a little bit of a pain. But yeah, when they have the right conditions and they grow big, they look super stunning. I have seen some in my city, some bars that have them on the outside, and they can look very jungly. But I think that this kind of Colocasias are better to be planted directly on the ground than to keep in pots, because they need bigger and bigger pots. So they are a little bit difficult to manage, so they are not bringing me too much joy as I thought they would. So I don't know if I'm going to still keep them in my collection or maybe sell or trade them, I don't know. So yeah, those are the last 2 Alocasias. I don't know, Colocasias, if I can put them together. But yeah, these were all the Alocasias that I have at the moment in my collection, and of course I would love to add more in the future because they are my favorite. And I just want to give you some tips on some things that I've learned through the experience of growing them and what I do to be safe and not encounter problems. And the first tip that I want to give you is to pot them in small pots. So what I've seen on stores and widely what they do, growers, is they plant these Alocasias in very big pots. And I can understand the reason behind it because when I think about the conditions in a greenhouse, then it is very hot, it is very nicely ventilated, so the pots can dry out very fast. So I don't think it's convenient for them to water the plants very often, and the one thing that they do to avoid this is to plant the Alocasias in a bigger pot. And they use also a substrate that is very moist retaining. So when we bring them home, the conditions change and Alocasias are very prone to rot. So what I like to do is to plant them in small pots, so the roots are very snug in there. Not root bound, but yeah, the smallest pot that you think it's right, I would suggest doing that. And I know that also people like to pot them in very chunky mixes like arrowhead mix. I personally don't do that. I use soil that I can find in my area that has peat moss, it has some perlite, some orchid bark. So I think it is like a very nice medium kind of moist retaining soil, that it's not very dry, it's not very airy, but at the same time it's not so heavy. So the roots can retain a very nice amount of moisture, but at the same time they are not super wet because I put them in smaller pots. The medium can dry out a little bit faster. So this is the reason why I want to keep them in smaller pots. And if you are very worried, I suggest to use the transparent pots. I am using them in my most finicky plants, and it is very useful to keep an eye on the roots and the moisture level on the substrate. You can see all the way to the bottom if the substrate is saturated, so that is very useful. Another thing that I suggest is the one that I said, that if you want a big lush Alocasia planter, then you have to plant multiple bulbs, and I suggest you to see them directly at the store. Okay, so I was saying that I suggest to check out the pot when you buy it in the store and to see if there are multiple bulbs. So you already have a bigger chance to have a fuller pot of Alocasias. The other thing that I suggest you doing while buying Alocasias at the store is to always check the roots, because you never know if the planter has been overwatered before, and if the roots have rotted, or even worse, the bulb started to rot, then it's most likely that your Alocasia is going to die when you bring it home. Of course, check out for pests, because you never want to bring pests to your home. And yeah, I think that is it. I don't mind watering with tap water. Fertilize it regularly, because they are heavy feeders. If you want your Alocasia to produce more leaves, to keep them and not drop them, then you need to fertilize them. I use Osmocote slow release, and I also add a little bit of liquid fertilizer from time to time to my waterings, and I dilute it. I don't use the full force because I have the Osmocote. And yeah, just be careful to not water it too frequently. Let the soil dry out. I like to let it dry out even 50%, just to be sure, so I don't risk to overwater, because overwatering and root rot is the main killer of Alocasias. Even if your Alocasia drops all the leaves, the bulb is the most important part of the plant, so make sure that the bulb is okay, it isn't rotting, and your Alocasia is going to come back. So yeah, I think that was it for this video. I really hope that you enjoyed watching it. I really liked filming it, and yeah, these were all the Alocasias that I have in my collections at the moment, and I really hope that I add some other Alocasias. My top wish list at the moment, it's actually the Alocasia Frydek. And I know that I have said in my wish list that the green one is the one that I think about, because the variegated one is unobtainable. I actually seen that the variegated one is becoming more available, especially in European market. So I do hope that I own that plant, because that is my top wish list for the moment. It's so stunning, and it would be a dream to own that plant. So yeah. Thank you very much, guys, for watching, and thank you for leaving the comments. Thank you for leaving the suggestion. As you can see, they really help me to create new videos for you. And of course, if you have other suggestions or requests, leave a comment down below. I always check them out. Don't forget to like, share, or if you are not subscribed to my channel, because I am trying to post regularly. And of course, don't forget to check out my Instagram page, because I love posting in there photos, and now I'm trying to become better at reels. So yeah, Albo__plants on Instagram. And thank you very much again. Have a lovely day, and I will see you on the next video. Pacim!